for joining me today. Building a conversational AI product is not a trivial initiative. I have built and launched voice AI products, and what I've learned from my own experience is building a prototype is, of course, way easier. But as you roll it into production and try to scale to your end users, it gets more and more complex. And today we'll dive a bit deeper into the challenges of building, deploying, and scaling conversational AI models. Before we dive into the session, I just wanted to give a quick introduction about me. I am heading product at Appen, and what we provide at Appen is a training data platform that delivers high quality training data for a variety of machine learning initiatives. Now, what is conversational AI? It's essentially human and machine interaction. And these are kind of applications that can offer human-like interactions from computers. And with conversational AI, computers can communicate like humans by recognizing speech and text. They can understand intent, understand different languages, and respond in a way that kind of mimics human conversation. And of course, it can be offered in two different modalities. It can be text or it could be voice. And the applications of these conversational AI products are numerous, and it's being used in different industries. It increases accessibility and also helps to build a much better customer experience. And some of the examples that you must have interacted with are chatbots, any voice assistant, a smart speaker, your mobile assistant, and anything to do with interactive voice recognition systems when you're calling a customer service agent, as an example. So let's take a look at the conversational AI trends and what's happening in the market. What we are seeing is an increasing adoption and usage of digital assistants. Things like smart home apps, smart speakers, smart TVs, now everything is driven by voice commands. And the growth rate that is projected for digital assistant is around 34% year over year, which is huge. And to put that into perspective, about 1/3 of the US population will use voice assistant in next 2 years. Next trend that we are seeing is just in-car experience. So you all are familiar with the self-driving industry and how the entire automotive experience is being transformed. And the future of voice is inside these vehicles. And again, we are seeing voice growing as an interface when it comes to building a much better and state-of-the-art car experience. And the fact that driving requires the use of our hands leaves voice as the natural user interface to perform tasks like, if you want to play music, if you want to control navigation system, it's way safer if you're using voice commands versus using your hand or gesture. And when you speak to a voice assistant in a car, it actually knows your location. And also on top of that, if there is facial recognition application, then it kind of understands more about you and what you are up to. So it can create a much more richer and personalized experience. And another trend that we are seeing is just a much better customer service. Now, AI will be a mainstream customer experience investment. That's what is predicted by Gartner. And 47% of the organizations will use chatbots for customer care. 40% will deploy virtual assistants. So you can see that how much investment is going into building a conversational AI and voice experience in customer service. And this is primarily driven by the fact that users need immediate resolution to their issues. And for businesses, it's really a great option to optimize cost and provide much better customer support and also scale. Like with the amount of users that they have, it's much easier to start applying AI and kind of do customer support in a much more cost effective way. And what users want is much more conversational and contextual support versus something transactional. Like you ask a question to a voice assistant, it replies back and then it's done and doesn't kind of remembers the rest of the conversation. So it has to be much more contextual, and it kind of it has to be much more human friendly versus something like machine. So as we build better conversational and better contextual chat and voice experience, that kind of thing will really differentiate companies from delivering a mediocre customer experience to a much more delightful experience. And additionally, AI applications, they need to understand emotions and respond accordingly, which is even more critical. And again, the applications for customer service chatbots is huge, like from supporting your banking application to even ordering pizza. Everywhere it's being used, but it's a lot of opportunities for us to add more intelligence and more context to these uh, virtual assistants. And with all this, there is an AI model that is running in the background that is doing all the decisions. And they kind of fall into three different buckets. One is speech to text AI, AI that converts the raw audio file, whatever you're saying, into text. The third category is natural language understanding. So whatever you're saying, the AI model needs to turn those words into an actionable instructions. And the third one is about relevance, that understands the relevance of what you're saying or what you're typing, and it returns the optimal information that can help you. And when you're building such an experience, what are the common challenges? One of the challenges is really around bias and diversity. Again, the AI systems are only as good or as bad as the data they are trained on. So, absence of more diverse data sets, absence of a variety of scenarios and training will introduce racial, gender, communal, and ethnic biases, which is not something that is acceptable if you're building a product that is used by a broad segment of users. So this is really important that like bias and diversity is kind of something that is addressed from the very beginning when you're building on conversational AI model. In addition to that, you have to account for a broad range of input and all possible variations about how people speak and talk to the voice assistant, as well as what the type of context that they have. So again, that needs loads of data. And the third thing that you need to worry about is all around privacy and security. So user privacy is important, and as you are building a system that is handling critical human interaction data, as well as making some key decisions, it's the privacy and security should be like the primary consideration that should play into your decisions. And finally, depth and breadth of your training data, right? So if you're building a product that will be used by a lot of users, people from different geographies, you need to worry about dialects, accents, languages. So just worry about like all the diversity that you need to build into your model, and that should be reflected in your training data. And finally, as you scale your application in production, you need to automate and build your machine learning data pipeline so you can continue to train and tune your model. Because as you are launching your model, you'll be encountering new scenarios, you'll be encountering edge cases, you'll be encountering new users. So you should build a much more automated data pipeline so your model can continuously get trained. You can kind of introduce human in the loop who will monitor your model performance and kind of try to cater to any deficiencies that your model has, and the model is continuously improving its accuracy. So again, these are all the challenges, and again, these are not like trivial challenges. So it's kind of this is going to be an ongoing initiative when it comes to either bias, privacy, or scaling your pipeline, or even handling the diversity of the data. Because the product grows, the users grow, and you need to make sure that you stay on top of all these challenges and make sure they're addressed. And just to give you one example of how insufficient training data can introduce performance issues. So this is a study that was done quite recently. It was just comparing different ASR providers and their accuracy score. As you can see here, the average word error rates for machine transcriptions of African Americans and white Americans. What is the difference? Um, and we can see that the error rate is much higher for African Americans. And again, these are the type of problems that could be solved with using really with more diverse training data sets. I want to walk you through an example of one of our customers, how they used quality training data and a scale of a platform to expand into new markets. And that also speaks to the problem around diversity in training data. So the goal for the customer was about to use their automated speech recognition, the ASR system, and expand it for a children's education application. And the challenges that they started facing is their existing speech recognition system. It was originally trained with adult speech data, so it was not really that effective when was used with children, because children typically speak with they have a higher pitch frequency. They have like spectral variability. They mispronounce a lot of things. They have irregularities in how they speak. So the ASR engine didn't really work well for children. So what we did was we kind of collected education related speech data. Again, that is also important at the domain, what kind of model that we are building, and you have to collect speech data for that particular domain. So it was more around education related data. So that's what we focused on. And also we focused on collecting data from a diverse group of children. And again, requiring demographics from different type of ethnic groups, as well as speakers, different type of native speakers in US English. For example, people from Northeast, Midwest, South, and West, each has a different kind of accent. So we kind of tried to diversify the portfolio of data collection process, as well as data transcription. And at the end, a very high quality ASR engine was built that was really catering to the use case around to support the children's education application. So this is just again one example. So as you can see, a very generic ASR model would not work for any custom scenarios. And again, for any business application that you are building and applying conversational AI, there is definitely it's more nuanced than a generic ASR engine. Now, it's very evident that training data is core to building world-class AI model. But what are the steps that is involved here? The first step here is collecting data for training. The next step is, once you have the data, you kind of level the training data. So you kind of tag the data, and then eventually you train your model. So that's that entire model building process. And once you have an AI model, you kind of launch it to your production. At the same time, when the model encounters real world data, it also starts learning. It predicts, and then you have to evaluate its input, and you have to realize that if the model is not accurate enough, you have to feed that output data back into your model training and model building process. So kind of you can keep iterating and keep improving the accuracy of a model. So it's kind of a continuous loop that needs to go on to maintain the accuracy of your model even when it's running in production. And another trend that we have seen is, in reality, model tuning is important, but that actually only takes 20% of data scientists' effort. 80% of their effort is actually spent on training data preparation, which is a very interesting data point. Now, first, they need to collect the data. If the data is not available internally, they will work with the vendor to get those data from external sources. Then they have to verify the data quality, whether it's good. If it is not good, they have to rework on that data, and they need to get the data labeled. Again, they need to do a lot of data pre-processing to remove outliers. They have to analyze the data to look at the distribution, and if there is any bias, they need to end up collecting more training data. And this is kind of a much more lengthier process. Again, training data preparation is highly necessary. However, you may not want your data scientists to spend so much time in the data preparation stage, right? So, selecting the right tools and processes is critical here. And I'll briefly share a demo of what's needed for the training data project when you are building a conversational voice assistant, and how a scalable platform and the right tools will help you be more successful. So let's say you are building a in-car virtual assistant, and I'll give you a quick overview of the kind of product that is out there in the market, um, and what are the fundamental AI models that needs to be built to create such kind of experience. So let me play this video for you.
What's the weather in Berlin?
The weather is 37 degrees and partly cloudy in Berlin.
Find good Italian restaurants in San Francisco that are kid-friendly but exclude pizza shops.
Here are several Italian restaurants with more than 3 stars in San Francisco sorted by rating that are kid-friendly excluding pizzeria.
So this is kind of a in-car virtual assistant experience, right? And to build this product, there are two fundamental AI models that is needed. First, you need a speech recognition model that is able to convert the voice into text. And the steps involved here are collecting voice data, segmenting those voice data, and transcribing the voice data. The second model that you need is a natural language understanding model to understand what the text actually means. And what you need here is annotating the text and then tagging those words. So how can we prepare training data for these two models? The first model needs voice data, and the text of the voice data is fed into the second model. So I'll give you a sneak peek on how these projects are done. Again, the options are like you can build all those models and all the training data by using any in-house tools, any open source tools, or any third-party vendors. I'm just giving you an example of how it is done in the Appen data annotation platform. So what you end up building here is what we call a kind of workflow, because it's not a one-step process. When you are building such kind of experience, it's a much more complex task, and it involves multiple data annotation projects. The first step here is a job where you're collecting audio utterances. What it means is different ways you ask something to a virtual assistant. And once you create that job and collect all those utterances, we kind of go through a quality assurance step where someone will review all the audio prompts that is collected and make sure that they are of high quality, they are consistent, and they're accurate. And anything that is low confident utterance will then go into a rework step. And anything that is kind of high quality utterance that is collected, that goes to the next job where you'll go and segment the audio clips. When I say segment, it means you take the audio clip and detect like which part of the audio clip is a speech, male or female, which has music, which has background noise. Just one example. And once the audio clips are segmented, the next step is about transcribing those audio clips. So you convert those audio clips into text. And again, all these could be separate steps and it could be done manually, but what I'm showing here is a completely automated way of building that end-to-end data pipeline. So the final step, once the transcription is done, is annotating and labeling the text. So you kind of identify the intents and tag each of these words in the sentence so that is finally fed to your natural language processing model. And again, it starts with audio collection, then you segment the audio, then you transcribe the audio, and finally you run a text annotation for NER model. And with this workflow, what we end up providing is this entire 6 steps. Everything could be connected, and in real time data flows between each step, and you launch the workflow, and finally you get your annotated data. for all your models. And again, the annotations can be done by your internal levelers, your data scientists, but that is not the most scalable way. So what we provide and what is the industry standard is you can use uh, like third party crowd, and based on your the sensitivity of your data, you can use different types of crowd. You can use open crowd, on demand crowd, or you can use a much more secure and managed crowd who will do a much high quality work for you, who have specific language skills. And again, each of these annotation jobs can be done by different types of crowd, but at the end the goal is you will just build an end-to-end workflow, and you get all the data output for your that is fed through either manually or through APIs in your model building pipeline. And we spoke about the different steps in the process. um, I'll just share like how these annotation tools actually work. So the first step we discussed was about audio utterance collection, right? So you give a prompt. So for example, in this case, ask your virtual assistant the different weather condition of a city, and you, depending on the language that you're building the model for, there'll be different ways that you'll ask the virtual assistant, and there could be different cities. So again, these prompts there could be thousands and thousands of prompts that you need to feed your model, your ASR model. And this is just one example of how the data collection process works and what kind of annotation tools would you be using.
What's the weather in Berlin? What's the weather in Berlin?
So this is called the data collection tool, where you will use our pool of crowd workers to collect all these varieties of prompts. So what they would do is we'll just give them a prompt that you need to ask the virtual assistant a specific question, and then they will go and record those conversations. They will play back, review, and then they will submit it. And all these utterances are collected in the platform, and you can use them to train your model. And of course, the next step in the workflow that I shared was a kind of a QA, where you'll review all these utterances and just weed out all the low quality utterances. And let's look at another important step here, which is around segmenting the audio clips. So it's also important that once you have the audio clips, you segment and find out where is the speech, who are the speakers, where is background noise, if there is any music, so you can appropriately train your model. So this is how the segmentation work is done.
What's the weather in Berlin?
So as you can see here, you can actually use a very intuitive and easy to use tool to segment the audios and to define different classes and kind of create the training data. And then let's talk about the transcription, because once you segment the audios, the next step is, of course, transcribing the text. And this is a view of our transcription tool, where you have all your segmented audio clips, and that is fed into a transcription tool where the crowd worker will go and transcribe the text.
What's the weather in Berlin?
Great. So this is how transcription works. But again, I just want to bring one thing here, the concept that once you have your model working in production, you can actually bring your model prediction into all these annotation tasks. So instead of the crowd worker transcribing from scratch, they will be looking at your model prediction, and if there is any inconsistency, they will be correcting it. So your model keeps improving. The other thing that we provide in all those tools is more machine learning assistance. So if you do not have a model prediction, we will have out-of-box models, or we'll have more AI assistance features built into these tools, so the crowd workers can do a much more productive work and much faster. So it's a combination of either out-of-box models that the platform provides, or a model that you bring in from your own model predictions. The final step in the process is text annotation. And in the text annotation step, human levelers, they go and quickly assign class labels to individual tokens and spans, and this is used for entity extractions and parts of speech labeling. And the way the tool works is you'll define a set of ontologies or classes, and you feed your text data. It could be in JSON format, or it could be in text format, and then the platform provides out-of-box tokenizers, or you can bring your own tokenizer, and all the tokens are created, and at the end the crowd worker will just assign class labels to different tokens. And again, there is a lot of usability focus on this tool. So you can see on the right hand side there is a lot of hotkeys, so you can quickly label them, the tokens. And also you can bring your instructions, and you can customize this tool based on your use case, and it's completely customizable and extensible. And again, you can also bring your own model predictions, just to increase the annotator's precision, recall, and just speed the task with machine learning. And finally, I want to talk about ML data pipeline for conversational AI. So the example that I just shared was a simplistic view of how you can build a virtual assistant workflow in the data annotation platform. But when it comes to some of the more complex scenarios, the steps involved and the pipeline could be even more complicated. So this is an example of a customer service an agent interaction kind of AI agent. And as you can see here, there is the first step here is you're collecting a lot of unstructured data, and that could involve audio collection, text utterance collection, intent classification, and even dialogue collection. So if you're building a customer service virtual assistant, you are generating essentially dialogue between a customer service agent and a customer, and you need to feed all those contextual and conversational dialogue to your chatbot or your AI assistant model. So again, you can generate all those unstructured data through a data collection step. And second step is just different types of data annotation, from audio segmentation to audio transcription to text annotation. So this is another tier of annotation. And finally, you feed your annotation data to your model. The model starts predicting, and then you are evaluating your model performance. And based on the performance of your model, you decide either to collect more data if you do not have enough data from different segments, or just re-annotate the data and correct the model prediction if the prediction quality is low. And as long as you can automate the entire pipeline, and you are launching tens and thousands of models in production, you can actually scale much faster. And the reason why you should look for a platform that kind of supports all these diverse kind of use cases, as well as an automated data pipeline, is because you can really scale in production and kind of address all the complex use cases and scenarios that you're looking for. And this is what at Appen we provide, and we kind of encourage our customers to think about both quality and scalability in mind from the very beginning when they're experimenting with conversational AI applications. Again, finally, I want to say that conversational AI, building that kind of experience is a complex endeavor, and you need to think from different directions around the diversity of training data. How do you collect data? How do you train data? What kind of processes, what kind of tools you'll be using, and who will be annotating the data? Do you want to engage the right crowd workers? Do you want in facility? Do you want NDA crowd? Do you want people who are really skilled in different languages? So again, considering all those complexities from the very beginning will help you build the right processes and the right infrastructure, as well as the right tool sets to be more successful in future. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.